Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. More likely Ole Miss every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is an extra edition of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined today by Jason Simmons from Dead Soxy, who is about next deep in the NIL program at the moment. He's kind of treading this waters, and he's been kind of an invaluable resource for us whenever you figured out what's going on that side of the coin as well. So, Jason, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
So, Ole Miss and the NIL Marketplace, and we talk about Ole Miss having a very ambitious collective with the Grove Collective, and the NIL maybe cutting edge is the wrong word, but it's definitely an advanced collective, an NIL marketplace around Ole Miss athletics. What are you noticing right now?
Man, I feel like we're leading the way in a lot of different ways. So, we just had the Grove Collection Day, so that's the first of its kind. That was an overwhelming success from everything that I've seen and heard. And then you have the launch of kind of this business coalition, which I think is just really, really, really a smart way to approach fundraising for student athletes. Just the fact that they are, getting businesses in Oxford to participate. I mean, think about all of the commerce that happens on an Alabama weekend in the city of Oxford. And if, a single percent or something even close to that goes into, helping us get better players down the line, that will hopefully help us win more games down the line. That's a really, really big deal and pretty innovative.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. Hey, what if Walker Jones and the Grove Collective gets together and it's like, hey, $10 off of the cover charge for the LSU weekend will go to the Grove Collective. I think we could raise some money that way, right?
Yeah, and every little bit counts. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That would add up quickly.
Yeah, that'd be really quick, because whenever I went to school back there way in the Stone Age, the library was the place to be. That might not be the place to be now, but it was way back then.
No, I still think they've got a monopoly on the bar scene there in Oxford. I mean, I don't know when's the last time you've been back, Stephen, but it's expanded to pretty much a whole block.
Yeah. Whenever I first went to college way back when, it was like this little back room area, and it kind of looked like a typical college bar. And then I went away, and a couple years later I came back, and this restaurant had developed in this offshoot that they like a patio type sitting area. It's like in stages, growing and growing and growing. So
yeah, that's the place to be on game day for sure. And those $70 covers, if we can get a little bit of that to go towards the Grove Collective, that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, that would be something to see. So Dead Soxy, you've talked to me a good bit of time and everything, and talked about advertising, and whenever you do, like, we'd put out a price for advertising and all that, and you would say that's a lot of socks we have to sell. And that kind of puts in perspective what you're dealing with. So what is Dead Soxy's strategy with NIL?
Well, let me just start by saying it's evolving. So it didn't take long when this law passed about 2 years ago before I realized, hey, we have a product that every single fan and every single alumni pretty much wear daily. And if we can figure out a way to crowdsource the fan base, and with a product that they already use and probably already own 20 or so pairs of, with a product that is a $20 price point, so it's very easily and attainable to pull the trigger on it, then we have the opportunity to sell a lot of socks. And if we can tie that back to NIL and support the team and support the Ole Miss athletics, then it could be a really, really big deal. Now, we did it last year for the first time and learned a lot of lessons, that's for sure. Last year, we partnered with 4 players, and all of them were successful. We got a little bit of a late start last year, just due to some tech issues and licensing issues that were unforeseen. But man, the opportunity is there, and we're seeing a dramatic growth. We launched our NIL subscription, sock subscription, so you can get a pair of socks every 1, 2, 3, or 6 months, and every shipment supports Ole Miss athletics. So we launched that in January. We really wanted to have it live late last year, but just due to some tech issues, I wasn't able to pull it off. But we've got over 300 members in that right now. If we can get to 1,000 this year, which is our goal, we're trending more towards like 1,200. What's really cool about this is that it just accumulates. So think about a snowball kind of rolling down the hill. And it's like, and this is, again, a product that every person can use all the time, that like wear out over time too. So there's always this kind of built-in need for an additional demand. Once we get to a point where we're a few thousand subscribers, we're likely going to be the largest contributor to Ole Miss NIL, kind of bar none. And that's our goal. That's what we're working towards. But really the strategy is, to roll out cool new socks, to partner with players, to partner with coaches, to create exactly. A bunch of those are dropping real soon. To partner with coaches to develop collections of socks that contribute to a particular sport. So we've got some baseball stuff coming out this next spring. We're working with Coach Yo to develop a collection of socks that only contribute to women's basketball. And then we're going to keep partnering with players too. So we're about to drop our next collaboration for this fall. That drops in 2 weeks. I'm not going to say the name here, but stay tuned. It'll drop soon. And then we also just re-signed our deal with Quinshon Judkins. So we're going to be dropping some additional Quinshon socks later this fall.
So whenever let's say, talk about Quinshon just for a second, because this you have some very interesting stuff. These are some lane train socks,
Right.
some of the old standby favorites.
That's right.
And whenever you have somebody like Quinshon that doesn't have that brand built, do you work with the athlete to help them build that brand? And how do you decide how do you want to market a player like Quinshon Judkins?
Man, we try. I want to be helpful at every point that I possibly can be. Quinshon's got a really good team around him as well. His agent, his mom, his uncle. I mean, he's got some people that are definitely looking out for him. But you're right. The brand for him is still very much in build mode. But one thing I can say about Quinshon is he's been phenomenal to work with. Like, probably one of our favorite athletes so far to work with. He is unbelievably responsive on design stuff, and he really takes a lead role on design. Like it's important to him to put out a sock that he was actually going to wear, and he's always the first one to get back, with feedback on design or suggestions for changes and whatnot. But as far as building the brand, I think that I want to utilize what we do really well, Stephen, which is make a great pair of socks and, be part of the solution for Ole Miss. And, at first we were kind of thinking, hey, if we can figure this out at Ole Miss within the first year or two, we're going to go national with it. We're going to be the largest contributor to NIL in the U.S. and like it's going to be this big thing. And I still think that could happen, but I would rather focus on Ole Miss and give us a competitive advantage, and let this thing kind of grow and be homegrown and something that we can be proud of, as Ole Miss fans. So we've basically ignored other markets. We've had a couple of people reach out to us. Texas A&M is one, UT is another, Arkansas as well. But we've basically said no until we kind of get this thing to a few thousand subscribers at Ole Miss, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting and pretty cutting edge, honestly. And whenever you take that with what the Grove Collective is doing, we talked about the business initiative in Oxford, because actually that's an incredibly smart thing. And I'm a little bit surprised that nobody has been doing that until now, because whenever the team is good, the businesses are doing better. Yeah.
Exactly. It does feed each other.
Yeah. And so they should have a lot of motivation to do this as well.
Right.
But what are you seeing? How closely have you worked with Walker? What do you know about the Grove Collective? What do you think is coming down the line in Ole Miss NIL?
We're working really close with those guys, and my impression has been they are the creme de la creme. Walker, William List, really everybody on that team has been really, really thinking outside of the box, open to new ideas. When I come to them with something that maybe is half-baked, which happens quite a bit, They've always given me the table and kind of kicked it around a little bit here or there. But just the way that they're thinking about it, the way that they're approaching it, how they're bringing other businesses in from small to big businesses, I feel like they are, really the tip of the sword. And I think just being involved in this whole Washington and, just the conversation nationally about what the collective should look like in the future, just being included in that as just Ole Miss being in that conversation, man, we've always been an underdog. And that's part of the reason why I just want to really, focus on building this out in the Ole Miss community. But it's I feel like it's changing. And I feel like those guys are leading that charge for us. Like Ole Miss has become a bit more of a national brand than it was when I was there, when you were there.
Yeah. Whenever I think about NIL and all of this new stuff that's kind of going around college football, I try to think of ways that I would sell it back from my days selling, what would be the action statement that I would try and get people to do. And this is what I have come out with. And since you are selling socks and you're a professional salesman, the whole 9 yards, tell me if I'm off base.
Okay.
NIL is an excellent way for people that is not around Oxford, not in the Oxford area, that is still having a vested interest in Ole Miss having good athletics program, are a super fan, a cap and t-shirt fan. This will allow them to have ownership over the program, to be invested. And I think if Ole Miss would kind of sell that, it would take it and it would mobilize this fan base. While it might not be large like A&M or Tennessee, Walker Jones has described this fan base as mighty. And this is a way to mobilize a few more people than just that core that's kind of been giving in the past.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to explain it, but at the end of the day, if you're an Ole Miss fan and you're a sports fan, you want to win. And we are a little different than the Alabamas and the Georgias and the LSUs who, won a lot of games. For us, winning 8 games is a big deal. Winning 10 games is a rare occurrence, and you better enjoy it while you can. For those guys, that's par for the course. And how we get to that level, now that NIL is here to stay, it's not going anywhere. Nobody wants to really touch this whole conversation with a 10-foot pole, because on both sides there's so many holes and legality and things like that. So I think it's here to stay for a long time, and probably the model will be tweaked. And we can maybe talk about that a little bit, where we think it's going. But this is how we get Ole Miss to 10 wins a year in football consistently. It starts with better athletes. That's it. And to get better athletes, yes, you got to have facilities and you got to train them well and get them to the pros and you got to win games. But today, the number one item, as Lane Kiffin has said many times, is pay. That's it. If we have the war chest or the money to offer them, there's a really good chance that we're going to get top tier athletes. And so that's how I kind of view it, as like, hey, to your point, this is the casual fan, local or not, this is the opportunity to participate in elevating Ole Miss sports. And, I think kudos to us and kudos to the Grove Collective, because we've gotten a quick start. We didn't sit around on it. They really got after it. And the fact that they are so aggressive and hungry, and look, it's working, Stephen. Look at our momentum in the recruiting class. I mean, it's phenomenal. We just got that, No Real White this morning. And I mean, this is, 3 out of the top 4 players in the state of Mississippi. When's the last time that happened? And if you don't think that is directly related to the Grove Collective's fundraising efforts, like, I'm sorry, you're mistaken.
Yeah.
So this is the opportunity for us to help, collectively.
Yeah. People that for the longest time, and I don't want this to come across as condescending or anything like that, but for the longest time, there was this group of people that was a small circle that viewed as themselves as having ownership and taking ownership and helping into the program. And those are those big boosters that for so long have given so much to Ole Miss athletics. Now, my father, who lives in Newton, Mississippi, who can't go to Oxford because his eyesight isn't what it needs to be, can't make that drive, still puts the game on the radio because he can't really watch it. He loves Ole Miss sports. And this is a way that he can take ownership and he can directly be a part of the success of the Ole Miss football program.
And what fan and alumni doesn't want to be, doesn't take pride in helping their alma mater, and that's like, for me, that's what a lot of what I take away from it is like, it just makes me feel really good to be part of moving this thing forward. And then to also see the impacts on the recruiting class and then hopefully on the field, this fall when the season starts, that, I just feel an immense sense of pride just to be involved in it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And we can shift gears now for a second because I want you to put your fan hat on for a little bit. We just got through with fall camp. We, as a channel, had an unbelievably successful fall camp, somewhere around 175,000 views.
Wow.
Over the month of August. But what have you heard through fall camp? What have you heard? How are you feeling? What is your gut reaction coming out of fall camp?
God, I am I am a real fan. Okay. So I am more excited about this year and next year's team than I probably ever have been about any team since I've been an Ole Miss fan. And just to be honest, I didn't grow up an Ole Miss fan necessarily. I became an Ole Miss fan by choice in college. So, kind of just right pre-Eli Deuce kind of eras when I came online as an Ole Miss fan. And since that time, I think this is probably the best team we've ever had. I don't know if that works out on paper, but it feels that way. I think Dart's going to win the quarterback job. I've got really, really high hopes for him this year. From all accounts, Grove Collective and just player partnerships that we have, he is absolutely on fire. I think Quinshawn is going to do his thing. I have really high hopes for Quinshawn this year. I think he's a dark horse to be in New York in the beginning of December. And I am so thankful that we are attached to Quinshawn. He's just a great kid in general. But obviously his play is just next level on the field. I think our receivers are going to be phenomenal. I think our defense is absolutely lights out. Pete Golding's recruiting has just turned things around on the defensive side in a really, really big way. I actually probably think the defense is going to be a little better than the offense this year, which is crazy to think about considering how good our offense was last year. I think Michael Trigg's going to have a big year. I think that the new Memphis tight end, Priesthorn is an absolute man himself. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like really across the board, I think our line has better depth than it did last year. Certainly a lot more depth than it did last year. Suntarian Perkins on the linebacker side, I can't wait to watch him take some heads off. I can go on for days and days, but I'll be honest, I'm a little bit tunnel vision when it comes to Ole Miss sports. I'm always excited about it, but boy, the energy and the momentum, it is just hard to deny it right
now. 12 players are on the watch list for the Senior Bowl on the defensive side of the ball. That's one more than the starting 11. There's more players on the watch list than actually can start.
Wow, I didn't actually know that stat, that there was that many on the other side. I know there was 20 total, right?
Mm-hmm. There's 8 offensively, 12 defensively. Which
is the most in the nation. But that just goes to show, I mean, that, some portion of that is, through NIL. I mean, is being driven by the efforts that we did last year. And, the move that Lane Kiffin made over Thanksgiving and the whole Auburn thing, which I'll give a brief story on this, but I was out of the know on all of this, so I'm watching like the casual fan and watching the post-game interview and things like that, and Twitter, and praying to God he doesn't leave. But I ruined Thanksgiving for my family because I was so dang nervous, because we had spent a ton of money on this NIL inventory. We had everything ready to go before the season launched, and CLC came back to us and basically said, hey, you got to get another license if you want to sell both Ole Miss and NIL branded stuff. And so we worked through that for like 90 days, but we didn't get to sell a single pair until basically Kiffin did the interview after the Mississippi State game. And in my mind, I was like, he's leaving for sure. He's gone. So the portal window opened December the 5th. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, we've got 9 days to sell as many of these NIL socks as we possibly can, so we don't go to zero. Thank goodness he didn't leave. But Thanksgiving was not fun around my household because of the anxiety and stress associated with all that.
Well, the same thing happened to me. I had some interesting live streams during that period. I had a video that hit nearly 50,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in my feelings during that period, as you can imagine. But it was fun. It all worked out. And I think the way it's set up right now, if something like that does not happen this year, to where the season just can play out, because I am dead serious about believing this. If Zach Evans was playing against LSU, Ole Miss beats LSU. If Zach Evans finished the game against Alabama, Ole Miss beats Alabama. And I think that the extra stuff kind of caused Arkansas and Mississippi State. The season will be completely different. But Zach Evans' injury and Ulysses Bentley going down, that's the reason we have Jam Griffin on the roster now. That's the reason they went and got an extra, is just what it could mean. And if that can be avoided this year, this has a chance to be a pretty special run, in my opinion.
I totally agree. I wish we didn't have the hardest schedule in the country, though. I wish.
Yeah, this is a rough year to get Georgia.
I know. I wish we could drop Georgia and get basically any other team from that side.
And then we get them next year too.
I know, but at least it'll.
But no Alabama, no Auburn.
That's right. Mm-hmm. You know what, man? My expectations are really high, but also I'm not naive. They have phenomenal teams, and there's a reason that Georgia's back-to-back national championships. They're recruiting 5-stars all over the place. We get a few 4-stars and 1 or 2 5-stars, and we're excited about it, which is great. I'm sure they're I can't wait to see them on the field. But how we get to getting multiple 5-stars is we got to keep coming together as a group, as a community, and backing what we're doing. Trying to raise money. So, just to kind of tie off that Lane Kiffin comment, just his gamesmanship of, toying with Auburn a little bit, which I love, and I watch your show, so I know you love too. So that felt pretty good. But just how he, right or wrong, I think it could have been done a little better. But it definitely brought the community together. And, that's what we need. Like we all have to play a part in this. We're not the alumni base of an Alabama or a Texas or Michigan or Ohio State. Like every bit counts for us, and the tighter we can be and the more support we can get, the stronger we're going to be.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to relitigate what happened back in November, but the fact of the matter is, whatever you feel what happened, Ole Miss came out of that in a much, much, much better position than it was when it went into it. Now, some people think that was done on purpose. The conspiracy theorists and the fan base, I don't think that. I just think it worked out that way.
Yeah.
But we need to be thankful for what we have and try to maximize that. And I think with Walker Jones and with what you're doing and stuff like that, Keith Carter at the foundation and athletics level, they're all doing their part to maximize what we have, because Ole Miss will never be A&M in Texas. We could have like 7 people hit the Powerball and we wouldn't be what A&M in Texas is.
Right.
But if we can maximize what we can be, we can mobilize more people to contribute with different ways to do it, because maybe before it's like, well, we're not up there. I'm not in that circle of friends. Right. That doesn't make any sense. Well, now you can take that ownership. And if we can do that, we have a chance to be, honestly, probably second tier in the SEC as far as money.
Yeah.
And when you're in the poorest state in the United States of America, that's not nothing to crow about.
Well, I totally agree. And then you sprinkle on top of that, Mississippi has some extremely talented kids this year coming out of high school. The talent is phenomenal coming out of Mississippi, and the fact that we got 3 out of the 4. And then you just kind of put the Lane Kiffin effect on top of, hey, if we're top of the second tier in money, and then you sprinkle the Lane Kiffin effect on top of it, Walker said this on your show, but we're definitely punching way above our weight, to use his words. And I think that we can maintain that as long as, the results on the field speak, make people want to come along on this journey a little further. I see us being in a really, really good place for the foreseeable future.
But the important thing is that I do want to say about the NIL is you can't have a wait and see mentality, and that whenever money is involved, so many people have a wait and see mentality. And this one, you're going to have faith that it's going to be used correctly, and the right people are calling the shots, and they're going to invest your money correctly. And I think we're in a good place to do that.
Yeah, I trust those guys unequivocally. From all the collective guys for sure. But I think Keith Carter's the best in the game. I think he is the best AD, definitely probably the best in the SEC, but probably the best out there. And just the fact that he's a homegrown guy, played Ole Miss sports. I'm sure you guys know that story, but man, he's the reason a lot of this is cooking the way that it's cooking.
Absolutely. Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Jason, thank you so much for stopping by. And just so everybody knows, from time to time, we're going to have Mr. Simmons on the show. He's going to be that NIL resource. This is going to be the first of many. Anyway, thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And just real quick, if I can get a quick plug, if you guys want to see what we're doing, if you don't yet know, go to deadsoxy.com/rebels. That's DEADSOXY.com/rebels.
There you go. Absolutely. Like I said, I've got the pack in there, and part of the NIL collection, part of your Ole Miss collection is with the game day colors. Don't you have like every socks matched up for that, so you could just buy a kit?
We do. We call it the Saturday 7-pack. So there's 7 home games this football season, and we tried to coordinate the colorways of the socks to match what's happening in the stadium. So, wear stripes, wear powder, wear navy, those things. So we've got a pack for every home game.
Well, anyway, thank you very much, Jason, for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next time, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.